This is the season setting PowerPoint for the Wyoming Game and Fish Department, Migratory Game Bird Seasons, and the Light Goose Conservation Order. This is Chapter 14 of our regulations. My name is Noelle Smith. I'm the Migratory Game Bird and Wetland Biologist. You can reach me at my email, noelle.smith@wyo.gov, or at the Lander Regional Office, 307-332-2688. This presentation will go over everything included under Chapter 14, so that's waterfowl across the state, Sandhill cranes, mourning dove, snipe, and rail seasons. We'll start with Sandhill crane seasons, and this is statewide. So here's our map of our different Sandhill crane hunting areas. We have two types of Sandhill crane hunts. There is a limited quota hunt of the Rocky Mountain population of greater Sandhill cranes, and then we have a general hunt in the eastern part of the state, which targets the mid-continent population of lesser Sandhill cranes. So area 7 is the general hunt area, whereas the others 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8 are the Rocky Mountain limited quota hunt. This slide gives a little bit of background on the Rocky Mountain population and their population numbers. So over the last 20 years, that population has fluctuated a little bit. It's currently sitting over 20,000. It's a much smaller population than the mid-continent population, which the general hunt targets. So you can see that as that population fluctuates, our allocation for our state does as well. So as it grows, we do receive more permits. This year's season is pretty similar to last year. There were a few date changes just to keep the weekend dates the same. Our permit allocation is very similar. There was a little bit of a dip in the population with our abundance surveys last year, but it's pretty similar, and the distribution across the state is the same. We'll move on to the waterfowl seasons. This map shows the different zones for waterfowl hunting across the state. We have one zone for the Pacific Flyway, and then we have in the Central Flyway 3 zones, C1, C1A, and C2. These zones help us set the seasons more specifically to the local preferences and take into account the differences in geography and weather that could affect migration and the timing of bird presence. Starting in the western part of the state in the Pacific Flyway, we had no significant changes. Every year we do change the dates just to keep openers on Saturday as much as possible. So that's what you see in yellow and red, but otherwise the seasons remain the same as last year. We do set the Pacific Flyway as early as we can, given the federal framework that we work within, so that we can capture as much of a hunting season before things freeze up. Now we'll move on to the Central Flyway Waterfowl Regulations, starting with Zone C1, which is in the central part of the state. There are no significant changes to this season either. The dates are mostly just one day off from last year. We did have one change in the dark goose season. That second split is longer than it was last year. So under the federal framework, they set the outside guidelines of what our season can look like, and then we can adjust how our splits fall within that. So we're able to keep the dark goose season open until the Sunday closest to February 15th, which last year was February 12th. This year it's February 18th, and so we wanted to take advantage of that longer season. So as a result, we had to keep the season closed a little bit longer during that second split. Now we're looking at the seasons for Zone C1A, which encompasses Platte and Goshen counties. This is very similar to Zone C1. There are a few changes, mostly just one day off from last year. We also have that longer split for the dark goose season though, and we're able to keep the season open this year until February 18th. Moving on to Zone C2, this area of the state closes up a little bit earlier often than the C1 or C1A zones, so we do start these seasons earlier. There are no big changes from last year. All of the dates are just one day off to just accommodate the calendar changes in the weekend. Wyoming does have a light goose conservation order season. So this season begins after the close of the regular seasons. This year we have the close in the Central Flyway. The latest close is the 18th, and so our conservation order begins on February 19th and continues through the spring through April 30th. And our final slide is mourning dove, rail, and snipe seasons. These are all statewide seasons, and the dates are static from year to year, so we have no changes for these. So that concludes this PowerPoint. My contact information is on that first slide. Please reach out if you have any questions, and then we are also accepting public comments for all of these seasons. Thank you.